I guess for starters, what do you like to be called? Do you like to be called
Just Lady Pink.
Lady Pink? And like,
My friends just call me Pink. A friend of mine gave it to me, decided that those were letters were much better to work style from, and they wanted to be known as the only group in the city that had a female in it. So Pink is as feminine as you get. Okay, the short history of graffiti in New York, it started in the late 60s on the streets, and by the early 70s, it went right onto the subway trains. And it was all executed by small crews of painters. And from then on, they were called just crews. So you belong to a crew, no more of like 3 to 5 people. Any more than that, you make too much noise when you're trying to sneak in. So small groups were the norm, and they would go out and specifically go to bomb the New York subway trains. We called it bombing, but it was
right,
painting. I came in by the 1979, when there was already a long history of what teenagers had done on the subways, including top to bottom whole cars and entire trains, many rivalries between crews from different boroughs, from Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens. And these were people who never even met, young teenagers, but you'd see each other's work and they were like, oh no, they didn't do that, did they? It's so big. Now we have to do bigger, better. So I had a bunch of different masters teaching me different things. I was down with a lot of different crews. So this was very organized stuff that teenagers did. There's hierarchy, there's protocol, there's convention, there's all kinds of things you had to learn. And you start off by being an amateur, low on the totem. There are masters, there are legends, there are heroes, they're like celebrities. And I quickly became one of the celebrities because of lack of competition. I was the only female at the time. But the shelf life for a graffiti writer, an active kid running around painting all over, is 2 to 5 years.
right.
And then they grow up, move on, get a job, get a life or something. You can't keep up, vandalism on a whole scale like that for very long. And we all did it just for the fun of it, for kicks and giggles and adventures with your friends. And suddenly it became a subculture. It became a culture that you strived into. It became like a guild. So you had to be accepted, you had to be invited in. And this was the beginning of street art. And now street art is all over the world. The vandalism we did on the subways stayed as pure vandalism. No one got paid for any of that,
Uh-huh.
right? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then by 1989, the subway trains were all cleaned off. There was
Right.
no more graffiti on the subway trains, and everything went above ground. And that's when the murals started to appear. And
Mm-hmm.
those were easy enough to do with getting permission from a landlord. And then you had a free spot. And suddenly everyone was giving out free spots, and landlords realized that they could battle this graffiti nonsense they've had on their building for ages by hiring professional graffiti writers to do something beautiful. Owners didn't need to see or approve a design. They weren't giving us money. We would hit them up for, like, if the wall was really big, for just a few $100s to cover like the renting of a scaffold so that we could get bigger. And then we
Yeah.
bring our own paint, invite our own friends, and paint stuff for fun. It was painting murals recreationally.
Right.
So that is the difference between a professional muralist and a street artist. We fund ourselves, so we have full creative control. Once people start throwing you money, then they start taking a little bit of control. They like want their logo, they want something for their shop. They're like, okay, oh no. Then it's no longer just, your fun piece. Then it's a commission job, and I do plenty of those. And those involve invoices and budgets and owner approving a design or asking for revisions. Most landlords that give you their walls do ask for you not to do anything controversial or political or religious or nothing crazy, because they have to live there, their neighbors live there. They just want something fun and pretty. That's
Yeah.
all they know, and they want it for free. The best of the best guys were already in their early 20s when I was starting, and they were already in the galleries, starting to do galleries. And they've invited me to be in their galleries. So the first shows and sales I had was at the age of 16. I was that young, and the older guys were asking me to be down with them. And this was people like Lee and Crash and Days and Zephyr, Dondi, Futura. These are guys who are all legendary. And I was just honored to meet them. And then I had to paint with them and exhibit with them. And I had to get good really, really, really fast because those guys were amazing. So they
Mm-hmm.
literally came to my high school to get me. And I was the token female. I knew I was the token female, and I was willing to, play along as much as I could. Money was rolling in, people, there was nightclubs and parties in rich people's homes, and liquor and drugs at my age. They're just giving it to us. And suddenly I'm at a party with Andy Warhol and Keith Haring and Basquiat. And, I did a lot of hanging out with those guys. I didn't have time for my senior year of high school. I took my GED exam and I was done. I was booked up with traveling and exhibits and things. I don't know where talent comes from or that skill, and why can't everybody do it? Perhaps where we have access to, the iCloud of skills and such, of knowledge. And when we're in an alpha state, we can channel other artists. Jenny Holster, huge influence. We did some bit of collaborating, and I was like all of 2021, something like that. I was 19, and she would have me up to her studio. She would prepare these big canvases and she'd make me paint something. So I've got an assistant now, and I'm doing that to him too.
Nice.
Because if someone don't force him to do that, it's not going to get done. So sometimes you got to help these kids, have to help a grown up help focus you to what's really important. Because when you're that young, you don't realize that this is important at all. I also do work with teenagers. I get an art education grant, and I paint large murals with teenagers. We get really big walls, and I get these teenagers right out of art school, still 16, 17, and I give them a wall that's 3 times their height and tell them, here you go, paint this. And so, like, throwing them in the deep end of the pool, exactly. And they always land on their feet. We're using their skills in real life application by leaving behind a permanent mural in their neighborhood. And that goes a long way. So yeah, I do love working with our teenagers and kids, and doing and paying it all forward, or going around and how I started. Grown-ups took me seriously, so I do the same thing for young people. Well, my mom always nurtured my instinct to draw and paint since I was a very little kid. Buying me, paint by numbers and all kinds of artistic things since I was a very little kid. I was always drawing. And in middle school, my art teacher insisted I do a portfolio so that I can get into art high school and so on. They already saw how talented I was at such a young age. So they nurtured that. But when I started sneaking out the window and going to the worst neighborhoods of the city with a bunch of handsome young men in the middle of the night, no support there. My mother would stay up all night crying, waiting up for me. And I'd try to sneak back in the house in the dark, creeping in like this. And then you wouldn't even see it coming. She worried. She didn't know where I was. She was always expecting a call from the police or the ambulance or the hospital, or worse, She was always in fear. She was trying to always get some boyfriend of mine to take control of me. I was a grown up at 15, at 16, going off on trips by myself with my friends. There's an exhibit in New Orleans, Mom, I'll be gone for a week. I wasn't asking for permission. I was just letting her know where I was going to go. She was even hoping to ship me back to Ecuador to my father that she left and never spoke to again, until she had to call him and say, your daughter's out of control. I'm going to send her down to Ecuador. And I swore I would run away if they tried to put me on an airplane and ship me back to the old country. I was not having that. Well, they supported me when I was exhibiting. At that young age, I had exhibit after exhibit. My stepfather would drive my paintings to different galleries on the top of the car, tied down with blankets and rope, really big paintings, but they were on top of the car. And he would drive them to galleries, and they'd come to the openings. They didn't understand all the weird people coming to the galleries and all those artists and such, but they were supportive. They were wonderful. They and still are. My mom still is. She loves all the books and magazines, and anything that I'm in, she collects. She loves to see. They're very proud of me. I've been married to my career and creating art. I didn't want to stop to be mommy. Although my husband had said that he would stop to be mommy. And he's been my executive assistant all this time. So he is what makes me a success and what makes my art possible. It's also like for most women that you are not a valid woman unless you become a mother.
Oh, yeah.
Only to breed the babies, is that our lot in life? So my mother would go on and on. Where's the grandchildren coming? When's the grandchildren coming? Until I had to yell at her to stop it. I am not having children. You're not getting a grandkid from me, so stop it now. I have chosen to do artwork and leave paintings behind That is going to be my immortality. See,
Yeah.
my paintings sit in museums. They will be preserved for future generations because it is a platform for your voice to say something important.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not a big fan of just doing decorative work. I do use my voice. When I'm doing research on feminism, I find my own work in there. I find me in there. Okay, activism, I find my work in there. So use your voice to say something important if given the opportunity. Champion a cause. Bring attention to something. And of course, you can't fix the world, and one painting isn't going to change the world. But you can start a conversation. You can bring attention to an injustice. If you have a platform, you have a voice, use it. If you can paint stuff in the street and you can't do a blatant political or social statement like that, do it subtly, and then mentor and support other artists. So don't be selfish with your gift and your talent. And if you hire young people to help you, to encourage them, there is nothing more than them meeting a real live artist, and that it will inspire them to continue to be artists. It's very hard to be an artist. Life of an artist, it's not easy. So we got to support each other, encourage each other. And that comes from our graffiti roots. We're just a great big tribe or clan or something like that. We all give each other support. Or we're a big dysfunctional family. We don't all like each other, but the support is there, and such. And wherever you go, you got family. Thank you for having me. So,
Of course. Thank you so much, Pink.